The new debate surrounding Manchester United, Ollie Watkins or Benjamin Sesko. Both of those have today been zoned in as two targets for the center forward position at the club, which I think everybody looks at and says, yeah, it needs desperate reinforcement. And today, Lauri Whitwell reports that those are the two big guys. Nicolas Jackson's been ruled out because Chelsea are asking for too much money. Mateta doesn't seem to really be a name that's floating around anymore. Osimhen seems destined for Galatasaray. A lot of big players have kind of been taken off the market, and we're left with Ollie Watkins and Benjamin Sesko. So Watkins and Sesko, the two couldn't be more different if they tried. Bar playing center forward, the similarities are few and far between, right? Watkins is a 29-year-old center forward, turning 30 in December. He's a Premier League proven goal scorer, somebody that has consistently scored 10 to 15 goals in this league year in, year out ever since he made the switch to Aston Villa. England international. I mean, more of like a fringe player, guy who comes in for Harry Kane at times. But he's a guy who knows this league and he knows how to score goals in this league. Whereas Benjamin Sesko, a 22-year-old, freshly 22 as well, doesn't have the same experience as Ollie Watkins, has never played in the Premier League, doesn't have the proven goal-scoring record of an Ollie Watkins, right? But the talent and the potential has always been seen as potentially sky high, right? He's been compared to Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He himself literally says that's a guy he looks up to, and when you look at the way they play the game, the profiling makes sense, right? Both are extremely tall. I think Sesko is what, 6'5", 6'4", really tall guy, but gifted with really good feet, can strike the life out of a ball. I mean, that is well documented, quite fast as well too for a guy of that height. Everybody looks at Benjamin Sesko and thinks to themselves, if you can mold this guy and develop him the way we think he can, you're looking at a future world beater. If he kind of fulfills his potential. So they're two players on the complete opposite ends of the age spectrum. They're two players who have vastly different amounts of experience. Some could argue they're two players with vastly different amounts of talent, potential, but two players that Man United have kind of earmarked as these guys could lead the line for United going into next season and hopefully for the seasons coming in the future. Now, I've looked online today, I've watched a few videos, and the takeaway I'm really getting from this is a lot of United fans and a lot of United creators want Ollie Watkins. That's their preferred option of the two. And it probably looks like the more realistic one, right? If you look at the price tags kind of spoken about with both players, Watkins, you're probably looking at around 40 to 50 million pounds, whereas Sesko has kind of been spoken about in the range of 69 to 78 million pounds. And it's a reason why at this point in the window, in a window where a lot of teams are looking for center forwards, he still is on the market, right? Arsenal were after him for a large part of the summer and ultimately could not respect the demands that Leipzig had. They weren't willing to spend that kind of money for an experienced striker. Liverpool decided to go with Ekitike, who even himself was around the same price, maybe a little less, but maybe had a better season than Sesko did last year. So Sesko costs a lot of money. Watkins slightly less. And I think because of that, and because I think some fans are very scarred with the Højlund experiment, going for a young striker and it completely blowing up in their face, they've decided that Watkins is the guy that they really want. Now, you guys know me. I say what I think, right? I'm not going to be influenced by anybody. I just give my opinions. If I like a signing, I'm going to say it. If I don't like a signing, I'm going to say it. I would prefer Benjamin Sesko of the two on certain demands, right? The context is important here. But if I'm looking at what I want from a Man United center forward, it's closer to Sesko than it is to Watkins. Why do I say that? Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think I can think of one successful rebuild a club has undergone where the club has gone and spent on 30-plus-year-olds. And I understand Watkins is 29. He's turning 30 in a few months. What successful football rebuild constitutes buying 30-plus-year-olds for 40 million pounds? Or 40 million plus pounds. It doesn't happen. You can look at a few in the last few seasons, right? You can look at Liverpool, for example, right? Under Jurgen Klopp. Their model, and you can look at all of their signings in that time, their model was signing 23 to like 26-year-olds. Most of them are 25. Why is that? At 24, 25, 26, you aren't super inexperienced in that you're being thrown into like a pressure cooker environment. You already have like a body of work that you can kind of measure accurately. And the best years of your career, you're either in them or they're in front of you. And you have a 5-year window at least where you can maximize that talent. You look at Salah, you look at Mane, you look at Van Dijk, you look at Robertson, you look at, well, Firmino was before Klopp, but granted, Alisson. Look at all those players. They bought them almost all at 25 years old. Go look at it. Almost all of them were at 25 years old when bought. And in return, They gave them at minimum 5 years. Mane burnt out the quickest out of all of them, but he still gave you 5 seasons, right? 2016, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 2021, 21, 22. You could even argue that's 6 years right there. And the most important thing as well too, they have sell-on value after that as well too, right? You're not selling them now at 33, 34, trying to, because no one wants to buy a 34-year-old. At 30, 31, they might still have one more big move in their career. And if they're still at a good level, you keep them. If not, you can still afford to make profit on them, or at least make some kind of money. And that was the case of Sadio Mane. But you look at the rest of them. Salah's still going. Van Dijk's still going. Alisson's still going. Robertson, okay, he's coming towards the end, but still gave you a huge amount of years. That's how they built their rebuild. It was entirely built upon the signings of 24, 25, 26-year-olds. And then when they get to like the pinnacle, when they become a club that's completed their rebuild and they're towards the top, right? They're a team consistently challenging for titles. They're one of the best teams in the world. Then you know what? You can bring in a Thiago Alcantara, who was 30 years old at the time. Because then you're adding him into an already successful team. You're not trying to build with Thiago Alcantara. You're just adding him. I look at Arsenal as well too, right? Under Arteta. Now people will say, oh, they haven't won anything. How can you say they've had a successful... Come on, give me a break. They were what, 8th place. Now every single year they expect a challenge for the title. They finished second 3 years in a row. If Man United, you tell me that in a few years we'll be we'll be challenging for titles, we'll be finishing second, we'll be narrowly missing out on titles, I'll snatch your hand off. So we can laugh at Arsenal all we want. Their rebuild is admirable in a way that we should be looking to try and replicate some aspects of it. If you disagree, your head is on Mars. I'm sorry, it's as simple as that. Arsenal's entire rebuild was clearing out 30-year-olds and adding 23, 24, 25, 26-year-olds. It just simply was. Ben White, Jurrien Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Declan Rice, Odegaard, Kai Havertz. Now you can disagree with the quality of players, right? But look at the age profile of them. They bought players with an idea of a window they wanted to kind of compete in. They might not have come in and from the jump got them ready to challenge for a title. Look, Arteta didn't win a title, didn't challenge for a title in his first 3 seasons, but eventually he got there because by the time those guys were in their 24s, 25, 26, 27s, all of a sudden the squad is built in a window that they're all ready to compete at once. You look at most rebuilds ever, right? There's very few exceptions, but Man City under Pep, they weren't buying 30-year-olds, guys. They were buying Leroy Sané. They were buying Raheem, well, Sterling was a little before. They were buying Gabriel Jesus. They were buying Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, Mahrez. Look at the age of all of these guys. They don't buy 30-year-olds because 30-year-olds have zero sell-on value for the most part once they hit 33, 34. They have a very limited window that you can compete in. And more likely than not, they've already hit their peak. And if they're either in their peak or have already hit their peak and they're only going to go down. You want players that are only going to go up. So for me, I am very against Man United signing any 30-plus-year-olds in their current market. The exception is if a deal financially makes sense, right? When we signed Eriksen a few years ago on a free, why not? Right? Go ahead. That's not going to hamper Man United and their plans for the next few years. He's a free signing, right? At the very worst, he becomes a squad player. You don't lose any money on him. You don't understand what I'm saying. When I look at Man United wanting to sign Emi Martinez for 45 million, why would you? The guy, his best years are past him. If any, this might be the best you get from him, but his best years are past him. You want to sign someone who's 25, 24, 25 years old. You can get just so much more out of their career in the present and in the future, right? I look at Casemiro a few years back. We were all delighted with the Casemiro signing when it first happened. And in the first season, Casemiro was outstanding. Outstanding. Guys, after a year, we all wanted him out the club. After a year, leave the football before the football leaves you became the most popular phrase in England because of Casemiro. And yeah, he had a decent remontada last season. Let's be real, man. Casemiro was a one-year thing. It was a one-year thing. We would love to get rid of Casemiro if we could now. Cavani, same. Cristiano Ronaldo, same. Zlatan, same. And I understand those guys are closer to 40 than they are to 30. But the principle, the logic maintains true. 30-year-old plus, you have very little return on investment, both from a financial point of view and from a production point of view as well, too. Now, people will look at that and say, well, look, at least with a 30-plus-year-old, 29-year-old, they're the finished article. You can trust them, right? Watkins, there's no question about how he's going to adapt to the Premier League in his first season or his second season. With Sesko, we don't want a 20-year-old who has to learn on the job. And I can understand that logic as well, too. I am not saying my preferred option of any striker in the world is Benjamin Sesko. I understand at 22 years old, there's more learning to do, there's more developing to do, there's a chance that it's too much too soon, Man United's a huge club. I get all of that. But for God's sake, guys, the alternative shouldn't always have to be, oh, either 30 or 20. You want a 20-year-old? No, it has to be a 30-year-old. Why can't it be somewhere in the middle? Why can't it be somewhere in the middle? Why can't it be a 24, 25, 26-year-old? That's the way I think of it. If I could sign any player from Man United, it would be in the form of Cunha and Mbeumo, right? Because they're really good right now, and they're going to continue being really good for the next 5 years. Man United aren't going to challenge for the league next season. They're hoping to challenge, though, in the next 3-4 seasons. The hope for Man United is that they build a squad that in 2-3-4 seasons, then they're kind of right there. But I'm sorry. Man United in the next 1 to 2 years will be nowhere near a title race. So anybody telling me Watkins can deliver right now, what's he going to deliver us to? What's the goal by signing Ollie Watkins? What's the best case scenario, right? Gets us back in the Champions League? That would be a dream. Gets us back in the Champions League within the next 2 years? That's a little more realistic. Or at least gets us back competing for Europe, gets us up the table. That's all well and good. But after that, then what? Are we just going to go right back into the market for another young striker? What does it look like for us then, right? That's why the one thing I will say about this Watkins deal, and I'm not trying to say I don't want Ollie Watkins. I think Ollie Watkins is a great striker. I think he's very underrated. I think he's probably the best in the league in terms of all-around center forward play. Like when you look at hold-up play, running the channels, occupying defenses, I think Watkins is arguably the best in the Premier League in that position. Like you'll have Nicolas Jackson, who's very good at doing that as well, too. Isak, of course. But I think Watkins, in terms of his overall center forward play, forget about goal scoring, right? Because there's better goal scorers than him. But in terms of their overall center forward play, I think he's arguably the best. Like his body of work in doing so in the last few years has been remarkable. He is a handful. I like Ollie Watkins a lot. But I do have major question marks about any team looking to successfully rebuild a football club signing him at his current age. Arsenal 6 months ago, when they had title aspirations and they wanted someone to get them over the line, by all means, Watkins makes sense in that kind of situation, right? It's like similar to Man United in 2012. We were so close to winning the league. We had a great team already. You add a 28-year-old, 29-year-old Van Persie to that recipe, all of a sudden you're cooking. But I'm sorry, a team looking to rebuild and be good for the next few years, I don't think 30-plus-year-olds are a healthy ingredient that you add to that kind of recipe. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan whatsoever. You guys can disagree all you want, and I know a lot of people will be, but I'm true to myself. This is my opinion. I don't want Man United signing 30-year-olds. If it's the only thing we can do, and no, you know what? Even if it's not the only thing we can do, right? We're not under any pressure to compete this season. There's always next year. More players will emerge on the market next season. I am not committing the next 4 years to a 30-year-old. Only way I'll do it is if financially it doesn't hamper rebuilding the rest of the squad. And maybe that's why you do go for Watkins over Sesko, because I want to play both sides here, right? I'm not going to just pretend Benjamin Sesko is a perfect signing, because I know he's not. I'm not going to pretend Watkins would be the worst thing to ever happen, because I know he's not. The only reason you take Watkins over Sesko is the £30 million difference in transfer fee, and it has to be that amount. Wages, Watkins is going to be appropriate with what he's asking for, because again, I'm not paying £200,000 a week for a 29, 30-year-old. Because what's that going to look like in 3 years? And C, it doesn't hamstring us from addressing other huge issues in the squad. Because guys, you guys know how I feel about Højlund. I'm not a fan, to put it lightly. But we finished 15th. Center forward is not the only issue we have in this squad, right? If you believe that, you're living in cuckoo land. There are a lot of issues in this squad. Center forward's not the only one of them. So if the logic by Man United choosing Watkins over Sesko is that Sesko becomes the only other signing we can make out of Cunha and Mbeumo, and that's our window, and Watkins maybe allows us to get a really, really good central midfielder, more in the age bracket I'm talking about, or maybe a wing back, I don't know. Then all of a sudden, the move makes more sense. But I would really need to see the figures we're talking about when it comes to Ollie Watkins. I'm not paying over £45 million for Ollie Watkins, personally. And I'm not paying him. Well, I don't even know how much Ollie Watkins is on. Let me see. And I'm not trying to pocket watch here, right? By all means, Watkins, get your bread. But it can't hamper my football club at the same time. Watkins' salary per week. Of course, this is not like the most accurate thing ever. Goal.com, Capology.com, most of these sources are saying he makes £130,000 a week. What is he asking for if he comes to Man United? Is he asking for 150, 160, 170? For a 30-year-old? For a 29, 30-year-old? That's a lot of money, guys. That's a lot of money that you're kind of putting to the side for a guy who's realistically, what's the amount of years of service at a high level Watkins is giving you? 2 at a push? Does anyone, like, what does Watkins look like at 33 years old? I don't know. I'm not too sure. Now, who's to say we can even get Sesko? Who's to say? Because Newcastle are interested in him. He had a higher caliber of club looking after him in terms of Arsenal wanted him. They're a better team than us right now. Does Sesko wait a year? Does maybe he decide, oh, I'll wait 1 more year at Leipzig, try and tear it up this season in the Bundesliga, and I'll have a bigger pool of clubs after me? Who knows? Sesko might just flat out reject us. Now, if 1 year in the Champions League for Newcastle is more enticing than Man United, then so be it, right? But I would like to think he has more of a long-term vision for his career than that, and that 1 year of Champions League shouldn't be the be all end all for Newcastle for Benjamin Sesko. But if that's the case, then yeah, look, we're looking at Watkins. But personally, guys, if you have to ask me between Sesko and Watkins, who do I prefer at Man United? I would rather take the punt on Sesko. And I understand it's a risk. I understand he's young. I understand Man United is not the greatest environment for young players to kind of learn and develop. The track record speaks for itself. But if Man United wants to be a club that is completely letting go of the bad habits of old and rebuilding themselves so that they can be a club that, in Omar Barada's words, his own words, he wants to win the league title in, what was it, 2028, Project 150. That's his goal. Then I'm sorry. I think Benjamin Sesko makes more sense. It's a lot of money. It's more money than Watkins. But with Watkins, we're paying 40 to 50 million for the next 2 to 3 years. And then let's see what happens then. With Sesko, paying 60 to 70, but for potentially the next 7 to 8. I'm sorry. I feel like that's the more logical decision here. And if your whole thing is like, oh, who's to say Sesko is not going to succeed at Man United? Either you don't really rate him as a talent, which I think is kind of crazy because I think very clearly he has a lot of talent. Or B, you don't trust Man United. You don't trust Man United to properly develop this player. You don't trust Man United to properly platform this player. And I do think when we're looking at Sesko, and I keep hearing these comparisons to Højlund, I think they're wide of the mark. These are totally different players. It's the same thing I keep saying with Gyökeres, right? People keep saying Gyökeres, oh, he's not going to succeed at Man United, at Arsenal, or in the Premier League because Bas Dost didn't succeed anywhere outside of Portugal, and Darwin Núñez flopped outside of Portugal, and Jackson Martinez flopped outside of Portugal. These are all different human beings. It's not like, oh, this guy succeeded, so this guy's going to succeed, or this guy failed, so this guy's going to fail. Guys, they're all their own players. They're all their own human beings. Sesko and Højlund, outside of playing center forward, have no similarities whatsoever. Sesko's a much more technical footballer. He's a much more intelligent footballer. He strikes a ball much better than Højlund. He's farther in his career in terms of development than Højlund was. And he's also coming to a Man United team that in attack, he'll probably be better supported than Højlund was. I don't really see the comparison outside of the fact that they're both young. Sesko's played more games of football at this point in his career than Højlund had. Højlund, for being real, that was a real punt. That was a real shot in the dark from Man United because you talk about raw. That was Højlund. Sesko is much more developed at this point in his career than Højlund is. Both of them, in terms of Watkins and Sesko, there are question marks. I'm not trying to pretend that one is a perfect signing, one is an absolute failure. But I'm sorry, just to finally reiterate it one more time. Point of this video. I'm going for the younger, higher ceiling player, if I'm trying to rebuild a football club, than a guy that's probably seen the best years of his career already in the past. Let's see what happens. If Watkins comes to Man United, I'm not going to act like it's a complete disaster. But I'm sorry, that's not how successful football teams rebuild their club. I don't really see it. I don't really see it. But with that being said, guys, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Watkins or Sesko? Give me your logic for both of them. Give me your reasoning for both of them. Give me what you think Man United should do, what you think Man United will do. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe. We're aiming for 80K very, very soon. I'll catch you guys there. Peace.